Ring Nat Pivnik. We're in London, England. This is tape 3.
Well, we couldn't go to the Christian. There was a hospital, of course, there, but the Jewish people were not allowed in. There was that Jewish hospital in Sosnowiec, which they liquidated. In fact, I remember that the son is in America. I even remember his name. He used to be a nice family man. But we heard that him and some others are to what they call to recuperate. Well, they were not well. That he, particularly, and few others are in Sosnowiec in the hospital. But when they got there, the son, I remember, and wife, there was a family. This was liquidated already, the whole hospital, and they took the ill people to Auschwitz. It was well known at the time already. Anyway, so I worked in that factory, and then when, in fact it was in the beginning of 43, when the ghetto started in our town. And I was allowed to use the horses and the vehicle to move my family, my parents, to a place called Kamionka. That was a little outside town, and very primitive, and very, very primitive. And that was the beginning of the ghetto. But to my memory, I didn't even sleep there one night. Because I carried all the furniture and moved to this place. And then very shortly, can I go back to 42? In 42, there was, they announced that all the Jewish people must go to this football grounds, more than one football ground, and all they will do is check the papers and stamp them. Well, people were naive and frightened, because maybe some didn't go, some hide. But they said that people which will be caught will be punished and sent away. In this, most people, I should say 99% went. They kept, this is important, they kept us there the whole night. Started to rain, I remember.
Was all your family?
All the family. Everybody had to go there. And they kept us the whole night. But before the nightfall, beginning to get dark, we managed to send one of my brothers through the fences. What happened? The guard was outside. But before they managed to come inside and surrender inside, because it was getting dark already, he managed to go home from under the fence through a hole. But some others didn't manage. They brought them back, beat them, but he managed. Because the next day, it was raining during the night, it was getting not pleasant nighttime, a bit cool and raining. And the guards came in the evening, surrendering inside. They had those raincoats on and well fed, well watered and well dressed. And we lay there the whole night on this football ground. But a few football grounds they made available because the whole town couldn't go to one. There's a lot of people. And so the next day they put tables, and they already carried guns. And people, the Jewish police ran about and tried to keep order, whatever. And they made people go to the tables. They've been staying there, sitting there already, not in uniforms, but with guns. And they checked the papers. Now, what happened was that each person that had this blue paper as a working person could cover another person, a child or a grown-up, whatever. So we had 4 in our family. See, my brother, my sister, my father, me. So we covered, except this brother that went out, but we had 1 more person to cover, and we didn't have the paper for that, because we could cover 4 people. That comes my mother, my little sister, and 1 or 2 brothers. But my grandmother, they took her away. We couldn't cover everybody. And so she was, I remember, she was, well, from that on we did never see her again, of course. And in the evening, I remember they marched those people to the trains, to the stations or whatever, to take them, and there were cries. And it was already getting dark. I remember them seeing marching, crying people, you know. She wasn't a youngster. My grandmother must have been in the 70s then. Oh, not.
And she was the one not to get covered
No.
because she was elderly?
Because we could only cover 1 person. Each person could only cover 1, but as we had 4 people to cover, but not the 5th. And we didn't think they will do that or something, but who knows? Anyway, she was taken away, and that was. We know where they went. I mean. And so when they, sorry, coming back now to the factory, when I did sleep there, sorry, I did interrupt with the Aussiedlung, with his papers and sending away the people. But it was important for you to know, of course. That was in 42. But when I carried them up to this place where they got a place to live, a small place or whatever, and the furniture, I was given permission from the owner, from the factory, to use it and to do that. But I didn't sleep there, if I remember rightly, not 1 night, because suddenly I heard they're looking for me, and they want to send me away and all that. But since they didn't find me, because I was sleeping in the factory on top of in the straw, on top of the horses, the stable. I went only home occasionally, like to change or something. And so they took my mother. Now, when they took my mother, that was once before I was taken, and I was released, because that owner from the factory and plus my blue paper intervened, and I was released. But this time it was too serious. It was. They took my mother, so, and I found out, because my brother did go home to sleep, but they were looking for me. So I slept in the factory there. And when they took my mother, then it was very short, already getting towards the end of the people, what I call Aussiedlung, liquidation of the whole town. That must have been, because I was taken to the camps in April. That must have been January, February, March, perhaps the beginning, when I took him to that place. And when I found out looking for me, and I was sleeping there, and when they took my mother, there was no alternative anymore, because I suppose it couldn't do much anymore. It was already 2 months, 3 months or 4 months before liquidation of the town. They knew what's going to happen. We didn't know. I didn't know. Because I believe it was July or August, or could have been July, that the town was liquidated completely, and I was taken away in April. So they knew already. The Germans and the owner, no doubt. But they didn't do nothing for me anymore. So naturally I surrendered and was taken to the camps. But I had the rupture already. And that's just no joke. This is a big thing which hurts by lifting or running or walking. But couldn't go to anywhere to tell anybody. I did try to tell I did tell her, to the secretary from the owner of the factory, but she couldn't do much for me anymore. And that's how I went to the camp with the rapture. Yes, and yes, and I worked and I lifted things, and naturally with that could have burst any time. I had that sort of a girdle, what they call a girdle or something, but it wasn't my size. It didn't do much for me. You know, people, my father got it from somewhere, and it wasn't my size. It wasn't. It may have helped a bit, but that's how I went to the camps with that, and survived.
What was the first camp that you went to?
That was what they call a Durchgangslager. Means from there they sent to other places, like a distribution. That was Sakrow, a place called Sakrow. And then from Sakrow was sent to Antoniohütte. Oh, it's all in Schlesien somewhere.
In Silesia.
Silesia. And there they built, they were building or repairing old factories, like long sheds. There used to be factories there, of course, and they repair it and prepare it for ammunition factory. And they didn't install the things. And from there, when this was finished already, it was a small camp, as it happens. There was about 70 people or something like that. And again, this knowledge of wood came very handy there, because the first day when we arrived in the evening, the next day, the other people were there. They were carrying them out, most of them, because they were mostly from France or Belgium or Holland. They were well known that they're not the hardest workers people. They're not. Anyway, they went out. They took him out. Where they sent him, who knows? And we were let in, and it was a big place. Like all the beds were there, you know, one on top of the other. It was like a sizable place, but all the beds were there. Next day they called out who's a woodworker, a candy maker. So I come out, of course. And another fellow, which he came from the same factory where I worked as it happens. I remember him and I knew him, of course. And we were the only people who were attached to do with wood. He worked with the machines, and I was attached to somebody outside, a civilian. A Polish man, and he was quite decent actually. In fact, he went home to see he saw my brother. Yeah.
From there, he went...
He was working in this place, but he wasn't civilian, and he lived in the town there. Forgot his name at the moment. It's rather... Mushalski, I think his name. I remember him. He did... my brother saw him. Yeah. He went home. Yeah. And I worked under him. Yes. So there's long things like maybe like that, and to do the ceiling, but that was pressed straw with cement, about that thick. It was good material for that sort of thing. Then they rendered it, of course. And I had two people which they lifted it up, because I couldn't do both lifting and hammering. And it had to be done that way, like that, because it's the ceiling. How else does one do it? Nail there, and boom, boom. Anyway, I remained doing this, not only this work, but other work to do with wood or whatever, and until I was sent to another camp.
How long were you in that camp, Antonio Hutter, do you remember?
Oh, I think a matter of maybe till September, I suppose. Not that long.
A few months.
Some months. And then I was. They sent us to Hubertushutter again. That's Hubertushutter is a place where they made army trucks and tanks and God knows. But we had other work to do, whatever. But from there, I was shortly sent to Laurahutte, which I knew Laurahutte from my knowledge. It was very close to my town, very close. But we were not allowed to go out. I didn't realize that I would be locked up altogether there and not be able to go out in the street or anything. But young and foolish.
How did you get from one camp to the
Oh,
next?
they carried us either trains or lorries. Yeah, of course it wasn't round the corner. But I heard Laurahutte. In Polish it's called Śmianowice, and in fact it's very close. A matter of, I don't know, 8 miles, 10 miles. I knew the. I mean, I didn't know the town, but I used to pass by there. I used to go out with people, and so I volunteered to go there because I knew it's so close. God Almighty, maybe I can get time to go home, because I believe at that time I didn't know the town has been liquidated already. I still went with the idea that everybody's home, you see. Anyway, and from there to Laurahutte, and actually in Laurahutte I found out that the town has been liquidated.
And that meant that your family
Everybody.
had
Yes.
been deported.
Everybody deported to Auschwitz. In fact, my brother was there till the last minute, and he left town with them to Auschwitz. But he was lucky as well because he got to a working party. Well, will be his story how he did it. But I know how he did it. So from then on, Laurahutte, I knew already that nobody's at home. It came to us through other people, and it was true. That was the end in '43 from the town. And so from there we were sent to a place called Blechhammer, which it was a big camp, many thousands of people. And it was not easy in the beginning. I mean, I was attached with the thing here. That was painful lifting, but there was no anybody with things like that. I mean, there were every week was selections. They just took the number. At that time, the beginning, there was no numbers. There was what's called a Judenlager, it means a Jewish camp. But then it became a concentration camp, which the SS took over from the military sort of guards and things like that.
This
The
is
SS took
Blechhammer
over.
that you're talking about.
Yeah, yes.
You had the selections, you
Oh
said.
yes, every Sunday. And if they didn't like it, someone hit their face or something, even during the week. But Sunday, that was the regular thing. They just wrote down, and a lorry came. Some people, they didn't know where they're going, of course. And they said, oh, and I remember even, we used to say, we're going to Erholung, means to recuperation. And we'll be back shortly. No, but that was known to some people that this is the end of the line for people. And usually they used to put them in, like in the camp was a huge camp, and they put them in behind barbed wire again. They couldn't come out from there, took away their clothes usually already. And then when the lorry came, or lorries, took them away, and that was it. They saved them up behind those wires, and like cattle, whereas without the clothes already, only a blanket and things like that. Yeah.
Were you clothed for the selections, or did you have to strip?
Oh no. On a Sunday morning, they used to count every day, of course. But on Sundays particularly, we used to stay 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people, one behind the other, and the whole camp was on a big space. There was the counting in the selection on this particular days like that. And well, I even remember some people faces. All right, and so I worked in this particular, the beginnings. It was very, very hard work, particularly when I felt that what I had to do, lifting things, it was very hard, difficult. And then if we were attached to groups, like 30 or 40 in a group, to unload bricks, for example, or to load bricks on lorries or whatever, or things like that. So one stays nearby the other one, and we had to throw 2 at a time. 2 bricks had to go at a time. Had to be thrown in such a way so they don't actually, well, it did happen, but so the other man can catch it, but without gloves and things like that. And it's rough. I mean, it was hard there. And then suddenly I see a familiar face, and who do I see? A Polish fellow, which we were friends at home. That didn't help me much. I remember his name, Władek Michalski, and if I ever go to Poland, I will try and show my face that I'm alive. And he was in civilian, civilian clothes, and I was already in stripes. And yeah, he recognized me, I recognized him. And we're not allowed to talk to civilian people. We're not allowed to. We criminals, we're not allowed to. But somehow, from the distance, managed to shout a few words. And the things I remember, he said to me, "I told you, one day you'll find yourself here." That was the friendly gesture from him. I made sure in my mind to remember his name. I know where they live, if they're still alive, because I used to go there as a youngster. We're friends. And he said, "I told you, one day you'll find yourself here. And by the way," he says, in Polish, obviously, "nobody's at home anymore. Nobody's at home anymore." Those are the words as well. But I just promised myself, if I do go there, which I hope I do, I have to be very careful, because I don't trust them. I don't trust them. This is not this man, this professor. This is different quality, different animals. But maybe I'll have... I talked myself in that if I manage to go there, I shall go there with a big cigar, just smoke a bit, and the rest go like that, which they don't see cigars, not them people. I'm sure. And just to show my face, I even remember his brother's name. The brother lost a leg, but that's not important. During the war, like he was a soldier. Anyway. And then I was attached to other work there in Lillehammer. That man that was he was Jewish, of course. And in fact, there were several women there, but we had nothing to do with them. We were not allowed to look at them, or even they had done either kitchen or washing. This was their work, and they were separate in a small camp. But that Demerer, he was the lager, the commander. He was a Jewish man, also like a prisoner like us. But somebody had to be in the top. He was a nice man, absolutely. Well, somehow I was attached afterwards to a place, other work than the bricks, because again they called out who they needed somebody to understand to do with wood. So, all right. So I was attached to another group, and what was the work to do with wood? It wasn't to work with the wood, it was to unload the trains that come, or load, or stapling, they call it. Stapling means to put the wood in a way, and inside had to be a piece of wood, so the wood doesn't lay one on top of the other, but it's separated so the air gets in to dry. That has to be done that way. And so I was attached to that thing, which it was a bit easier work, of course. And then before that, I was doing, they call it Hochrüstungsbau. It means scaffolding building. Climbing very, very high, and hard work. And there was over a couple of people who were attached to that work. There was a German master, a German specialist, and we worked under him. But and from there I was at. They called and they wanted to understand people. I managed to get into that group. And that Demery was very nice man. He was really an angel man. So much so that after a time, I worked until the evacuation from Blechamen to the march. When we got into Gross Rosen, that was on foot walking in the snow, 45 January. And who couldn't walk didn't go any further. I've seen people walking barefoot, absolutely in the snow and the ice, barefoot. For some reason or another, they lost the shoe or they lost their shoes. They didn't walk far because their feet were getting swollen like anyway. And people that we walked in the snow and the ice and the guards, and who couldn't walk, well, it was finished. And so when sometime we didn't get any food, sometime they managed to persuade maybe farmers or things like that, and there were several thousand people marching. So they put out things, only